Hey, what's up, my guys? I will be hopping on and completing some tasks later on this week, but sorry for the lack of work so far. This video is just to help you guys get a little caught up on how to assign tasks. It's a little convoluted and a little complicated, so I apologize in advance. If you have any other questions, please let me know, and I can always record another video, uh, doing a little more in depth, or you can just ask me questions like via Messenger or something. But essentially, all you need to do is worry about two things. So the first one is something called object tasks. This is a script that I've created, and this script goes on the object that the player is able to possess and needs to use to complete certain tasks. So, for example, in my test scene, you can find the knife object, and this already has it. Um, because obviously you need the knife to cut the mooncake and stuff. So if you look in the script, there's two things that you really need to fill out. The first is a list called tasks to complete, which is a list of completion objects, and a list called locations, which holds the game object that you kind of need to bring the item to, if that makes sense. So let's start with the completion objects. So completion objects are essentially a scriptable object that I've created to help keep track of how many actions you need to do to complete the task and some other information. So all you need to do to create one is right click, create, and then hit completion, and this should generate a new one. You'll see this has four fields. The first is minor task object, actions to perform, number of actions, and the type of completion it is. So let's go top to bottom. So minor tasks are essentially the subtasks needed to complete a bigger one. These are things I've already created, so all you need to find it is so under the task list folder, you'll see there's room tasks. Sorry, bear with me here, and then you'll see eventually phase one and phase two. These are kind of the bigger sections that I've kind of narrowed it down to. And then within these folders, you'll see different categories of like dumplings, mooncake, or tea. So if you look at the knife, you can also what you can also do is just go to the ones I've already created and then click on it. Sorry, go to the completion object, click on this, and it'll bring you to the correct folder that is in. And then you can kind of find other things like dumpling. This is like roll out the dough and all that stuff. And then so with this, all you need to do is click on the completion object and then simply drag it into this field. So if you go to like completion one, lock it to make it easier. And let's say it's something for like the signs. All you need to do is drag it in. And the way you can check that whatever you're highlighting is a minor task is if you click on it, look in the inspector under script, there should be something called minor tasks there. And as long as that's there, then you should be good to go. Don't really need to worry about the minor task itself. That should be all taken care of along with like the task list. So the next one, you'll see actions to perform and number of actions. So these should start out as the same number, so just assign them as the same number. These basically handle how many times a certain action needs to be performed in order to trigger the completion. Um, and this kind of ties into the type of completion, which is essentially broken out of three things. So the first one is one time, which means all you need to do is bring the object from a certain location to another, and that counts as completion. The second one is, which is essentially you bring the object to a certain location and you have to hit the action button a certain amount of times. So for example, when you're cutting the mooncake, you need to be in the vicinity of the mooncake and then hit the action button. Sorry. Yeah, 4 times in order for it to trigger completion. So that's why it's labeled single. And then multiple is there are multiple locations you need to bring the object to in order or and press the action button in order to fulfill it. So each of these three, I'm going to delete these two real quick. Sorry, delete. So each, the three completion objects I've already created are one of each, so you can kind of look at it for reference. But if, for example, for the sweep one, it's attached to the broom. You'll see that for this task itself, you need to go to different dust piles, and then when you hit the action button, it'll sweep it up and delete it, and then that's why it's classified as multiple, if that makes sense. I think that should be it for the completion item. Completion object. That was kind of poorly explained, so please let me know if you have any other questions. But just a brief overview. Just remember that minor tasks are going to be located in phase 1, phase 2, and just find whichever subcategories under. To make sure it's a minor task, you can just try to drag it in, or you can click on it itself and check that the script it's on is called minor task. Actions to perform, a number of actions are just set them to the same number. These are up to you to decide. If it's multiple, if it's one, if it's one time, these are both going to be one. No big deal. That's all you need to do. For single, this is kind of repetitive actions. So you can kind of, it's up to you to assign how many times you want the person to do that, right? And for the last one, multiple, that's if you go to sweep, this number lines up with how many kind of locations or things you need to clean up or destroy per se. So for example, there's 4 dust piles that we need to sweep up, so there's going to be 4 number of actions to perform. And just to clarify, actions to perform is kind of holds the maximum because, during runtime, the number of actions will be decremented each time you kind of press the action button in the correct place, because I assume the player can leave the region and then come back to complete the task another time. That's just how I was able to keep track of it. But yeah, that should be it for the completion. Remember, one time is from one location to another. Single is a single location, but you need to be in that area and press the action button multiple times. And then multiple is having multiple locations, just like the different dust piles here. And then just make sure that for the under locations, just assign the game object that you want to bring it to. This only really matters for the multiple, because then I delete it as we go, and that's how it kind of handles things. So if you click on the broom, you'll see it has all 4 dust piles here, whereas on the knife, it's just the mooncake. And then the other thing you need to do for setting up tasks is just, if you look under the mooncake in my scene, you'll see that there's something called vicinity, a game object. And on this, you'll see it has a box collider as well as a completion vicinity script. So all you need to do is just, you can either copy paste this game object, that's completely fine. Or if you create a new one, just click add component, search up completion vicinity and select it. And then there's nothing else you need to do with that, just make sure it's on it. And then for the box collider, you'll see that in the scene, it's kind of a little bit bigger than the game object's actual. Like the smaller one is a mooncake and the larger one is vicinity. That's just to make it a little more forgiving for like detection of if you're actually in the right position. You can kind of change to wherever you want, and then this itself will handle transmitting messages that, hey, you're in the right location to the object tasks list. So I think that should be it. Just remember, on the object you can possess, object tasks, and then fill this out as needed. And then on the object that you're bringing it to, make sure it has a child game object called, or not called whatever, but that it has a completion vicinity as well as a box collider. The reason I have it as child is just so it doesn't really interfere with the Mooncake's box collider, if that makes sense. But yeah, so yeah, if you have any other questions, just let me know. Shoot me a message and I can either record another video or explain it through text or something. But yeah, so yeah, sounds good.